Coming at you live from all over Ohio. A Cleveland Browns podcast full of laughs, rants, fun, and stats. A place where all Browns fans' voices are welcome and heard. A show that aims to inform and entertain you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Barking Browns Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into episode 104 of the Barking Browns Show. I'm Jacob. That's Nick. We're brought to you, as always, by our friends over at Homage Apparel. You got some NFL over there, or NBA over there. I got the classic Brownie the Elf over here. The best vintage apparel company in the market, man. So go check them out at homage.com. And if you want to bet, do some betting. Go on over to our friends over at BetJack, a local Ohio-based sportsbook, so you can check those guys out.
Yes, sir.
Support them and everything they do. Nick, how are you doing this evening?
I'll tell you what, I'm always trying to figure out what it is I am like burying my face in my hand as in our intro. Because it's one of those moments that I don't know why. I just go down that little rabbit hole. But it's
That's
great to be here.
That's because I told the joke that the Cleveland Browns are that ex-boyfriend who says they've changed and really they're just the same shitty old person that they always are. That was that moment. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you know what? I had the urge, so I get it now. I just want to say, we've got Drew here already. We've got Mitch Metz here already. Our members, thank you guys for being here. It means the world to us that we can do this. And you know what? I just want to say thank you to the Browns because this episode almost didn't happen this week. We're kind of entering that period where it's a little lull, and the Za'Darius Smith trade, well, it brought us right back here to break it all down.
Yeah, it was kind of funny, man, and we'll get to our guest here in just a second so we can get him on and start talking to him about all this. But it's like 8 p.m. on a Friday, dude. Like I was about to unplug, I was had a few drinks and was kind of relaxing and watching movies and was settling down, and then I looked out at my phone and it was just like breaking news: the Browns have acquired Za'Darius Smith, and I was like, oh, we're doing this.
Yeah.
So we were going to take this week off, but there's a pretty good chance we'll take the next couple of weeks off. After this week, I get my damn thing on I had the ringer on. But you probably take the next couple of Tuesdays off. Potentially, I'll be on vacation for some of that, so we're going to do all that. But guys, we are so thankful that you're here. Please, if you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up. It helps us greatly on the algorithm. Go check out our friends at Homage and BetJack and Underdog Fantasy. And without ado, we'll bring on the very handsome, the very dapper Mr. Casey Kinnamon. Casey, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing tonight?
Again, living the best life.
I'm just shout out to Jacob for saying Kinnamon and not cinnamon.
We'll circle back to that. We'll circle back to that.
The best part is when you watch him think about it in his head, he's saying cinnamon and trying to attach the K for the C, and he's like, I'm going to do this. And he's gotten it right the last couple of times. So we got to give him some credit. Got to give him some love there. Guys, yeah, man, the Browns, right when we think we're getting to the dead period, they provide us with just, what's really funny about this move, and we're going to dive really deep into this, and that's where we're going. We're going to start there, dive into there. We got all kinds of other stuff on the back end of the show, talking about Zeke Elliott and some other awesome Twitter topics that we feel needs addressed. But it's really interesting to me because there was a lot of things post-draft about different analysts and members of the media saying, I think the Browns should still add a starter at edge so that they don't have to force Alex Wright or Isaiah McGuire into snaps if they're not ready. Alex Wright showed that he was just too raw last year. And who knows where he is this year. But if he's still in that developmental stage, which is what he was coming out of UAB, you don't want to force him out there to the tune of a 38 PFF grade again, right? We don't want to see that. And so, I was kind of okay, man, maybe you get, my favorite dude that's been on 1-year deals for the last, what feels like 10 years is Melvin Ingram. And he just goes and gives you 8 sacks. You just pay him $10 million, he'll come and give you 8 sacks or whatever. And so, I was thinking a guy like that, kind of a veteran there. It ends up being a 1-year rental, essentially. with Za'Darius Smith. They redo his contract, and like the cap it's only like $3 million this year, which is just outrageous. But let me ask this. I'll start with you, Casey, and I'll go to you, Nick. Did you see a move of this caliber coming at this position or at all?
No, I'm with you. I was thinking of Melvin Ingram, Justin Houston, Frank Clark, something around that scenario. The fact that they were able to go get Za'Darius, man, that is top shelf, man. You got to give it up to AB. That's the piece you were missing that you didn't even know you were missing, And now that they have that guy, now it's going to make everything flow better. You're going to Double O's not going to have to come in and take some gargantuan amount of snaps. And I think as a fan base, we do this too often. So much of the fan base has already written off Alex Wright.
Right.
Man, he was just forced into a role that he wasn't ready for. Mm-hmm. I still think he can be a dude long term. Yes. But now you're going to get to see that progression naturally. You're going to get to see him play 30% of the snaps, and he's going to have more production just due to that.
Yep.
So I think going and getting an athlete like Za'Darius, you're giving Jim Schwartz a key chess piece that's going to unlock this whole thing.
Hey, you know what? I was full steam ahead on the Obo Okoronkwo DE2.
Yeah.
That's where I was, and I was gonna be, and I did have hopes that there would be another veteran because we've seen the Browns really try to have at least 3 defensive ends, whether it was with Chase Winovich or the defensive end whose name I can never ever remember previous to Winovich. Tack McKinley, thank you. I don't know why.
I don't know what it is, but he cannot remember Tack.
I just can't do it. I can't. And so I would argue now that you're in a position where Obo is easily the best DE3 the Browns have had, and I'm wondering, is Za'Darius Smith the best pairing opposite of Myles Garrett? Because obviously Clowney had that year where he had 9 sacks and he and Garrett really tore it up. But I'm leaning towards Za'Darius right now, and I know we haven't seen it on the field right now, but that doesn't feel like a hot take to me. What do you guys think?
Za'Darius is more versatile.
Yes.
He's going to be that move guy. When you heard Clowney bitch at the end of the year last year because they wanted him to move to do things and he wasn't having, you're not going to get that out of Za'Darius. He's going to be that guy. They'll stand him up and let him mug the A gap. They're going to, he's going to kick down and play defensive tackle at times, even on passing downs. Like, he's very versatile, and he's going to be that movable chess piece that's going to allow Myles to eat like full time. I think from an athletic standpoint, you're going to get similar of an athlete to what Clowney was that first year, but he's more of a team player. I mean, just point blank. So it's an amazing pairing. Like I said, it's the piece you didn't even know you needed, and now that you got it, you can kind of see the full picture.
I think he's absolutely, I don't even think it's just from a talent standpoint. From every way you look at it, he's the best pairing Myles has had. If you look at, there was a graphic like in the last 5 years or last 4 years, players with how many players had 10 sack seasons. Myles has 4. TJ Watt, Za'Darius Smith have 3. And the only year in the last 4 that Za'Darius Smith has not been hyper productive was when he had back surgery 2 years ago. What ended up being his final year in Green Bay. But if you look at that dude who had nearly 100 pressures when think about that, man. And he battled a knee injury last year. He starts off the first 10 games with 55 pressures and 9 sacks last year. And you say after that, you're like, okay, the knee injury, and are you getting concerned with some added injuries? Yeah, of course that bothers you when you start seeing multiple injuries, kind of add up. But he's still 31? He's younger than us.
Yeah, well.
Pixie, last week we learned that we were really old because Nick's words were like, he was like, it was me. It was me. But then Nick pointed it out. I said, yeah, you got Rodney McLeod coming in. He's an older player. And Nick's like, he's our age. And I was like, oh, God, because we're both 32. And that was like a self-resolution. So we figured that out. But he's Za'Darius will be 31, I believe. I think he is 30.
Yeah. He's 30 right now.
He's fine. I think it's a 1-year rental. I'm not sure that they'll find a way to bring him back, although I would love that. But just this potential looking here, I can't see any guy, and Drew brings up Olivier Vernon, who I really liked him as well. But there's not a guy that has had the production, the talent, and the upside And think about this. What are you going to do? We started doing these daily YouTube shorts here on YouTube and putting them on TikTok. And they're little minute clips. Yesterday, I talked about, I think Dalvin Tomlinson actually is the most beneficial person from this trade. Because if you look at it, you've got Dalvin Tomlinson on the inside, and I don't even care who the other D tackle is. But you got him, and let's say you got him on the inside, Za'Darius on the outside, Miles on the outside. There's a 0% chance you're doubling Dalvin Tomlinson because of what the other two are. And that's not a knock on Dalvin. That's just a really credit to the other two pass rushers. And so what are you going to do then? Well, one of them is going to get, Dalvin's going to get all these one-on-one opportunities. And think about putting Miles inside with Dalvin and then Okoronkwo and Za'Darius on the outside. And you just start thinking about that stuff. And you're like, oh my God. And that brings me to my PowerPoint, because guess what, ladies and gentlemen, I made a PowerPoint to tell you why I think the Cleveland Browns will have a top 3 pass rush in 2023. All right, let's do this. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to pull up this slideshow. It's going to be fun. There's no surprises whatsoever.
Oh, I'm sure.
So let's start here. Okay, there's my PowerPoint. These are Browns pressures in 2022 from the defensive tackle standpoint. Taven Bryan had 23. Jordan Elliott had 21. Perry, this is where it gets fun. You barely broke double digits in your last 3 guys. Perrion Winfrey had 7. Ben Steele had 4, even though he played in 4 games. Tommy Togiai had 3. So you're looking at that. I'm not sure if any of those guys are back. I know Taven Bryan's already gone, but in terms of guys making the roster, that's what that looked like. And let's say Jordan Elliott does stay. That 21 pressures added to what I'm about to show you. So you're looking at that and you're like, oh, okay, that was really bad. Well, if we go to Dalvin Tomlinson in 2022, he had 29 pressures, 6 more than anybody else on the team, 3 sacks, and a 79.1 pass rush grade. I'm not going to tell you what the pass rush grades were for the defensive tackles not named Taven Bryan. I'm not going to do it.
I don't want to know.
Don't ask me. All right. Next step. Let's talk about edge. All right. This is the Browns 2022 pressures from the edge position. Myles Garrett had 73, and the next 4 combined had 60. So Jadeveon had 29. He's gone. Alex Wright, 12. Winovich, 11. Isaiah Thomas, 8. So that is 60 quarterback pressures from the 4 edge players not named Myles Garrett in terms of there's some other guys that had pressures, but those are the most pressures for all intents and purposes. We're going to call these guys edges 2 through 5 just for this exercise. All right. So now let's move on to the next slide. How did that get there? Anyway, we're going to move on to the I do not know how that got there. That is, who put that slide in there? That is weird. I don't know who did that. Za'Darius Smith by himself in 2022 had 10 sacks, edges 2 through 5 combined for 5. Think about this. Edges 2 through 5, Za'Darius Smith had double by himself. We're not even getting to Okoronkwo yet. Double. He had 78 pressures. That's 18 more than edges 2 through 5. And it's 5 more than Myles Garrett.
I still remember the pain when Myles Garrett got in his car accident of what that pass rush looked like without him there. I never want to see that again.
Pass rush grade. He had an 84.7. Clowney had a 70, and then it drops off. 59.8, 52.9, and 47.1. So add in Okoronkwo, 36 pressures, 5 sacks, 81.9. So you're talking about you're now getting an 84.7 and an 81.9 in terms of pass rush grade to replace a 70 and a 59. Think about this. 78 pressures from him, 73 from from Myles Garrett last year. That's 151 pressures from your 2 starting edge. And Za'Darius and Myles played part of the season's hurt.
That's true. Yeah. You know what? That's an underrated part for both of these guys.
Top 3 pass rush. Any questions?
I have a question about the accident photo there.
I don't know what you're talking about. This is David Pumpkins. What is it?
Yes, that. I need the story. What's going on here?
So in high school, our a cappella choir sang the national anthem at a Columbus Crew game. And I forgot my shoes on the bus.
Okay. You know what? I swear to you, I didn't notice the boots until just now.
Yeah, those are stripper heels.
Those are certainly something.
That's a choice.
And that is my presentation to why I believe the Cleveland Browns pass rush is going to be just ridiculous.
And you know what? So shout out to you, because I love that presentation. I thought it was wonderful, and I think it does add a lot of great evidence as to why this Browns defense is going to be what we all were hoping it had the potential to be before. And I think that brings me to probably the greatest piece of all of this. You go through all these stats and you're talking about all these pressures and all these sacks that Miles and Za'Darius can potentially have, and just the line in general. And you're like, well, the Browns probably had to give up a ton to get him, right? He gave up 2 5th-round picks. And you know what? I think this is a huge credit to Andrew Berry. I have never seen a Browns GM get more picks back in trades than Andrew Berry does
for good players. It's not even like, because you'll see like Jeff Okudah, and I like Jeff Okudah, but Jeff Okudah just hasn't lived up to expectations in Detroit, and Detroit wants to move on. Wanted to move on prior to the draft, and they were in a position potentially to take a corner in the draft, depending on how things fell to them and all that stuff. And they were like, okay, we're going to give away a former 3rd overall pick, but he just has not played that well. So we'll give you back we'll give you a 6 so that we can get a 5 or something like that. Those are not the players he's acquiring. He's acquiring Amari Cooper, who was still almost set career highs. He did set a career high in touchdowns. And then Za'Darius Smith, who's coming off of not his best season, but a very, very good season.
I have 2 words to add to your PowerPoint presentation. Jim Schwartz.
Yeah.
All that's without him dialing this up. And I've spent the last 2 days poring over his time in Philly from 2016 to 2020 and how he used his rotation, how he kept his guys fresh, how he would move certain players and leave certain players in position. And I think that what you've handed Jim Schwartz now, what AB has effectively done and just handed him for this rotation, I think it's going to be nuts. I think Miles is going to kind of stay where he's been. He's been floating around that 800 snaps a year, 865, 812. I think that's probably the parameter. You want 750 to 800. It's kind of where we had Brandon Graham when he was in Philly. And he didn't really have a Fletcher Cox like he did in Philly, and he was always right around 80 as well. So you're going to see a little different approach there, and I think you're going to see some of the edges, because they have a plethora now, kick down and play more 3-tech than they have in years past. But the rotation is going to be insane. You're like, Double O played, I think, close to 500 snaps last year, and he had 36 pressures. You're probably going to see something similar, but he's also going to see, it's going to be havoc. I mean, it's going to be unprecedented. Since the Browns have, all time, they've never had more than 48 sacks in a season. Last year they had 34. Miles had 16 of those.
Yeah.
That's 47% of the team sacks. I don't think Miles' numbers are going down. I think you're probably looking at 16 to 18 sacks again this year.
That.
I would say this team decimates that record. If they don't get over 50, I'll be very, very surprised. Just to watch what he was able to do in Philly with lesser athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, Brandon Graham's a good player. He's not Myles Garrett.
No.
They didn't have a Za'Darius Smith. They had Josh Sweat, Barnett. Chris Long kind of played that Tack McKinley role that we always say, where he'd come in, stand-up rusher. Well, now you got Okonkwo. Then we're going to see Alex Wright. We're going to get to see this. The Isaiahs, both of them. This is just going to be the most insane rotation that we've ever seen, ever, for the Browns. We haven't seen anything close to this. It's going to be raw, just unadulterated havoc back there. You're going to see a ton of 3rd and longs. Cornerbacks better be ready to tackle, because if it's 3rd and 9, quarterbacks are only going to be throwing 5-yard outs, because they got to get rid of the ball. they don't have a choice. You hold on that ball, you're going to go down, man. And Shorts preaches it's all about turnovers, strip sacks, fumbles, and that's what's going to happen when you have this kind of pressure. So, I mean, be excited.
Yeah.
Be excited. This is people trying to like pour water on it. It's like, oh, they got to do. Dude, Myles Garrett's real. He's tangible. You can touch him. The Browns have had that. Now you're adding another monster. You know what I mean? Who's versatile. You can even drop into coverage. Za'Darius can do a lot more than an average edge. Be excited and feel good about it.
And you're talking about saying, and you guys have said this, and you're right. Like Za'Darius has never played, or Myles has never played with somebody like Za'Darius, but Za'Darius has never played with a Myles Garrett on the other side either. It's a give and take. I don't think Myles Garrett, like this is me from right, I would say in the first 5 to 10 games, or 5 to 8. So the first half of the season, Myles will not see less double teams. I think the number will be the same as what it was last year. And because if it was me, I would do the same thing. And I would say Myles Garrett cannot beat us. And then you're going to start chipping him and you're going to do all these things and you're going to neutralize him. And Za'Darius is going to be on the other side and just like, okay.
And should eat. By all respect, I mean he's eaten with like you just said, he's never played with a guy like Myles Garrett, and he still piles up sacks. Right? He's one of just a few players that have had 10 plus sacks in 3 of the last 4 seasons. And so Casey, you got me fired up, man. That was a little mini rant. I like it. It's impossible not to smile listening to it, and I think a big piece here to what you guys are saying and about the pass rush overall is it has really been since the second half of 2020 that the Browns have truly had an offense that was capable and did take leads, right? Like throughout the year last year, it wasn't like the Browns were ever truly blowing teams out. I don't remember any situations like that. And the last, like I said, in that 2020 year, I think we really saw Myles Garrett able to get after it because you finally forced teams into obvious, we've got to pass the ball down the field to catch up situations. And so my part of my biggest excitement here is that this offense is also built to be as successful as any offense we've seen the Browns have in I don't even know since when. And so if that's even half true, right? And now you're looking at this pass rush and a rotation of it. They should feast. It should be the best. I agree. It should be a top 3 NFL unit to Jacob's credit. And Casey, it should be as good of a Browns as we've seen.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I was doing some stuff and I can't read. I was listening earlier to Jake Burns and Andrew Spade talking on today's episode of the OBR Film Breakdown, and Andrew said something that I had kind of had thought in the back of my head, but just hadn't really like vocalized it necessarily, and that was we're putting a lot on the shoulders of Deshaun Watson in this offense, and Watson being who he was prior to the suspension. And I think rightfully so, when you look about the money and the assets and all the things that you did committed to him, and of course you surrounded him with just a plethora of weapons. And I know we're talking about defense right now, but I'm getting there. I can't remember how Andrew Spade exactly articulated, but I just thought it was really well. He said, this defense takes pressure off his shoulders, because think about this. You're not looking at a top 25 defense where we have to put up a ton of points. There's going to be games that you can win with 24 points, that you can win with 20 points. Maybe not many, because the defense is going to need time to gel and all that good stuff. But this defense and what they are building, it's just such a domino effect. It's like we've talked about that with all the moves, in my opinion. And Nick, and I know Casey's written on it, and I know he's spoken on it. Nick has too, and all that stuff. But all of these moves just continue to have these domino effects that I think build the roster overall. And that's what the Za'Darius Smith thing, and that's what I said on the YouTube short yesterday, was like, Tomlinson is not looking at double teams as a pass rusher, unless both of them are hurt or something like that. Because if you're sitting in a situation where you kick like Za'Darius inside, you got Okoronkwo and Miles on the outside, and you got all these things. The person that I'm going to be the least afraid of is Dalvin Tomlinson, but he's pretty good. So like, and then the thing is, so it becomes this chain effect. Well, guess who's going to have a good year playing behind a defensive line like that? I don't know. Somebody named Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, probably, because you're going to keep him clean. Like it domino, and it bleeds over into the offense. And now I'm getting fired up and I'm yelling and high pitching at you guys and all that crap. And it's damn May 16th. But I'm getting tired of Twitter telling me I don't get to be excited about adding a ton of talent because they haven't showed it on the field. I get that. And you're right. They haven't. But if you look at these moves and you say that nobody gets to be happy and nobody can say anything because they haven't got to play, that's just asinine to me, because it's like when you're talking about like rookies and projections, okay, that's fair because those are not proven commodities. But you're talking about guys like Za'Darius Smith and Dalvin Tomlinson and Okoronkwo and bringing in Juan Thornhill and adding Elijah Moore and you guys that I can show you tangible data and film that are better than what you had. You are allowed to be excited because this team is better, significantly better than last year. Now, they have to put it all together, yes. But on May 16th, they cannot play any games. So the one thing they can control, the talent on the roster, they've done their job with that.
I saw it was Pete Smith the other day who was talking about this. And people were like, well, we need to see the results on the field. Andrew Berry's job is to put talent on a roster and build it as deeply and as efficiently as possible. Andrew Berry's done his job, right? No matter what happens on the field now, Andrew Berry is adding legitimate multi-time Pro Bowlers and guys who have been like from Amari Cooper to now Za'Darius Smith. You're looking at giving up just a few day 3 picks for guys. Amari Cooper's been to the Pro Bowl 4 times. I think Za'Darius Smith has been 3 times. You're giving up day 3 picks. I just want to. I'm sorry. I get so frustrated with this. People are like, "Oh, well, Amari Cooper's overpaid, and Za'Darius Smith, he's going to make $11 million." And you know what? Andrew Berry's showing that he's going to find a way to make the money work. I do not care. People are like, "Oh, well, Amari Cooper was expensive. That's the Cowboys got rid of him because he's overpaid, and Za'Darius Smith, the Vikings were going to pay him."
But that's why it was a win-win for the Browns and the Cowboys, as well as the Browns and the Vikings.
I don't care. I don't care what these guys are making. They're legitimate, bona fide, producing players that help you get to where you want to go. I don't care what they are making, because Andrew Berry's proven one of his greatest strengths is managing his cap.
It's even more than that, because he's doing this with limited resources. Yep. He's doing this without the draft picks. Yep. He used this 42nd pick in the draft to go get Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman. That's with one move. Then you go get a good one for $1 million. You know what I mean? So you completely revamp that room for less than $5 million for this upcoming year. Just completely. Did the same thing with the defensive end group. You know what I mean? He's not paying top of the market prices for any of these premier players that he's getting. You know, it's people don't want to give it to him just because they want to see it on the field, and rightly so. They need to have results. They didn't put all this together to not get him. But people that are like all off-season champs print the shirts. What do you want them to do? Not add talent? Is that what you want here?
Yes, that's my point.
He's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. And at the end of the day, yes, if Watson and Stefanski can't get it to work, then this will be all for nothing, and we can be mad about it. What's more likely? What's more likely? Is Deshaun Watson going to be who he was for the first 50 games of his career, or the last 6? Go ahead.
One of these sample sizes is not like the other. I'm just saying.
There was oh man, Jake Burns was talking about this with Andrew Spade too. I just listened to this podcast. That's why I keep referencing it. I'm sorry, but I love what they do over there. What Jake does, bring in all the guests and all the other people, really get some different voices. But I can't remember. There's some analyst that's basically trying to say that it was actually Watson's Houston Texans runs that was a fluke. And this is my favorite. Well, hold on, it gets better. This is my favorite point that they said, because he had some really nice offensive lines. Have you seen his side? Listen, he had Laramie Tunsil. He had a great left tackle, not for the whole time he was there, and a bad offensive line is why he lost a good chunk of his rookie year, too.
Sure
I will keep that in mind. But, like, I don't know. I just, listen, if you hate Watson and you're always going to hate Watson because of what he did, that's fine. That is perfectly fine. None of us, I know at least of the 3 people on this screen right now are not going to judge you for that. Totally understand that. But if you're looking at the football side of it, you can want him to fail because of the person. I can understand that. That's it's like, oh, he's such a bad person, I don't want him to succeed. I can respect that. I can get behind that. But to blatantly say because you don't like the garbage person that he is off the field, that he can't play, I think it's like this. It's this. What did they call it? The Watson tax. That is what this whole team is getting, because all of a sudden, guys, these last couple of days, all of a sudden, the Cleveland Browns are a dark horse again. All of a sudden, the national media realized they added a lot of talent to this roster, and they're still PFF ranked them 9th post draft. This was before Za'Darius Smith in their power rankings. Everybody else has them 16 to 20. And to be honest with you, I'm okay with that. Yeah. Although a lot of people are like, you don't give them any good high expectations because then they'll suck. Remember the last time? I'm like, stop. What we are saying on this podcast and what people are writing is not affecting how they play. If it is, they shouldn't be in the NFL if they're that, Yeah. But my point is, like, I understand it. But all of a sudden, everybody realizes what we've been saying all this time, and it still hinges on Watson. It does, and it will. But to say, like, this defense on paper should be in the top half, if not top 10 of the league. And I just made a case for why I think it'll be top 3 in terms of pass rush. I'm not sure about the linebacker and coverage and all that other stuff when it comes to total defense, but I think looking at Za'Darius Smith's tape, and I watched as much of it as I could find, and it's just, this team has had talent. People are starting to realize the talent. It's all going to fall on the head coach. Well, not just the head coach, but all of the coaches, as well as the quarterback. But if things go the way history, data, and film say they will, this is a very competitive team. They traded for Za'Darius Smith because they think they can contend for a Super Bowl this year. Yeah. You don't make that move, that one-year move, if you don't think, hey, we can make the Super Bowl, not we can get to the playoffs. Za'Darius Smith said it today. He posted that little 13-second clip.
Yes,
just smiling ear to ear, which they're always going to be smiling, but it really did feel like he was excited. He was happy. He's like, we're going to win the division, go to the playoffs. He's like, first things first, we got to win the division, but it sounded as close to a guarantee as you could get. And it's just like, all these signs are pointing at it. It's all in. The roster's good enough. Now, can you put it all together?
Well, you know what? So some people have still been skeptical of the defense. And when we talk about just how good they can be, I thought Mina Kimes added a really good piece to this puzzle yesterday when she tweeted out that the Browns had allowed the second lowest QBR in man coverage last season. But they only played man like 50% of the time.
50%, yeah.
So when you're looking at the Browns defense as a whole, and keep in mind, a really important piece to that, they weren't really, aside from Myles Garrett, they weren't really getting any pass rush to begin with, and they're still allowing this really low coverage grade, which I think speaks to just how good the corners were covering in that case. Because if you're not rushing the passer and you're still not allowing passes to be completed, it has to be because your coverage is good.
That was without a free safety.
Exactly. So when you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, how good can the Browns really be? What can this defense really be? When you think about how good they were in man last year, and they were only doing that about half the time, if Jim Schwartz just changes that ratio and on top of it, like, allows his defense players to communicate, because I still am scarred from the final week of the season when the Browns were playing the Steelers. They're still having communication issues between the linebackers and the secondary. Like, it's the final week of the season, and they're still doing this, like throwing their hands up like they don't know where they're going, right? So it's like this nonsense stuff, this stuff that's legitimately there and telling you that you could just flip the switch and fix these couple things. And then you add on all the talent they've added to the defense. I'm yelling. I can't help it.
When it comes to I'll go a step further. That when you watch what Schwartz does, you're still going to get a dose of quarters, quarter, half, but he runs cover one man, which puts a ton of pressure on the post safety, which they didn't have until now. Now they got that guy. When you look at what these cornerbacks are able to do in those situations, press man situations, Denzel is a mirror cornerback. He wants to mirror you. Emerson wants to beat you up.
Yes.
It's not one style, and Newsom's closer to Denzel than he is Emerson, but he's more physical than Denzel is. They have the pieces in place to play man like that. Now that they have the safety to do it, you know what I mean? This is a symbiotic defense. You got to get after the passer. You got to be able to guard. They have those two areas covered. To me, it comes down to linebackers. And we know they're athletic enough, but they haven't been put in this position yet where they've been kept clean. This is going to be a whole new, fresh approach. Schwartz is going to dial up a ton more man than we've seen in the last 2 years. You already know that from his past. So he's going to put the cornerbacks are going to be in a position where they're happy and not playing defensive. They're going to be able to dictate, and that's what it comes down to with what I saw the last couple of years. They were passive. Things were happening to them, and they were trying to adjust. That's gone. Schwartz doesn't play that game. They're going to dictate. They're going to go out there. They're going to set the terms that they're going to play by. And it starts with the pass rush, but it finishes on the back end. This team should be top 5 in turnovers as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because people are going to get frustrated a little bit about the lack of blitzing because they that's such just a buzzword for everybody, and he doesn't blitz, but he's incredibly aggressive, man. Like it's going to be night and day, and the question comes in the comments about how long does the season will the defense need to gel. Because of the talent and everything, I think a lot of what Jim Schwartz does, it's not going to be like a foreign language change. There's a lot of concepts that the Browns have ran the last 3 years under Joe Woods that Jim Schwartz is going to deploy with tweaks. It's like, what it was, the biggest thing with Woods was the way he would attack with the defensive line and linebackers, and what he would pair, the coverage that he would pair with that didn't make sense. It didn't work. You're going to get changes. It's not like they're going to go from running cover 3 and cover 4 to just cover 0 and cover 1 and stuff that didn't run before. It's the pairing of the stunts and the slants and the blitzing that they do use from the second level and things, and how he'll use that wide 9 to stand guys up on the outside and attack just in ways that are different, that kind of thing. That's my thing is like you pair it, and it's like if you're going to get aggressive and you're going to send extra blitzers, you've got to have the corners to cover behind it. Well, the data shows they do. And you added some more depth in the draft. You drafted another one, and I know it's a fifth round corner, but I've watched some of it. I've not done the film study. That's a couple of weeks away, but I have watched some Cam Mitchell after the selection. I wasn't really sure who he was. I was focused on slot corners, although I think he may play some slot. I think that may be where because he hasn't played a ton of it, but like his skill set does suggest that he can. So, that sort of thing. I don't know, man. It's just every way I slice it, every way I look at it, I just see a significantly more talented team. And you look at it's like, and the coach has that track record. That's what we talked about when you got Schwartz. It's that track record. And then all of a sudden the talent took over, and we kind of forgot about what you had already added before you fixed the talent issue.
I want to touch on something you said. Everybody's kind of fixated on the blitz numbers.
Yeah.
It isn't the sheer number of blitzes. He's effective calling them, though. Mm-hmm. When you watch him, they'll basically, when he does bring it, it's going to be all out on the outside. He'll assimilate blitz from the interior, but not really bring it. He'll just kind of manufacture the feeling of pressure. But when he brings it up the middle, it's always delayed blitzes by the linebackers. If you think about JOK and his skill set coming on a delayed blitz, he's going to get home. And if he can get home 3 to 4 times in a year, that's success right there. Schwartz always it's not a ton of blitzing, but it's effective blitzing. He knows when to call it. It's tempo, it's pacing, but he's going to keep it simple, man. He doesn't run anything overly complicated. Defense comes down to alignment, assignment, and keys. You know what I mean? See ball, get ball. And you have the athletes in place to pull that off. When you got a guy like Schwartz calling it, man, That's a recipe for success. Now, they are going to need a couple games, but I don't think it's going to be some long, drawn-out process. Why do you think they're going to Greenbrier, West Virginia? You know what I mean? They're dialing this in, man. They knew who they played game one. Played the Cincinnati Bengals, man. You can't show up there and not be ready. You know what I mean?
They'll kick your ass.
Yeah, like it's I don't know. I have full confidence. You don't go out and go get a DC, the prowess of Jim Schwartz, to not let him do what he does. And they went and got the edge rushers to run the rotation. They already had the cornerbacks in place. They add someone like Cam Mitchell. You go get a post safety in Thornhill, and no one's really talking about it. But McLeod, when you're watching those Eagles games, McLeod is a missile. He's going to be fun, man. It's going to be easy to get behind that dude. And that is someone he will bring off the edge.
And that's someone I forgot about. I forgot about him again. Like I did. I was just, you said that and I was like, oh shit, he's there too.
Yeah. You know what? Tack McKinley doesn't exist to me and Rodney McLeod doesn't exist to you.
Yeah, well, I couldn't, I'm so dumb too, because I looked at his name last week and I was like, wait, how do I say that? And I know who the dude is. He's a prominent player. He's not a nobody you've never heard of. And I'm looking at his name. Well, I'm just scared because it was Diakite, or Diabite.
Diabite.
The linebacker that on UDFA that they signed. I was working so hard to make sure I knew how to say that dude's name. Mm-hmm. And I was ready. I was ready for that. And then so I was freaking out about other names, and I was like, shit. I didn't want to mess that up, but whatever.
You know what? So most of the time when you get a new defensive coordinator, or one that's the type of experience as Jim Schwartz, it's normally okay, well, this guy's experienced, but he got fired from a team because he had this weakness or something went wrong. And I'm not saying Jim Schwartz is a perfect defensive coordinator, but he didn't leave Philadelphia because his defense fell apart or because suddenly something wasn't working. He left for health reasons. I think it's such an underrated upgrade because Schwartz was legitimately just continuing to coach good defense when he left Philadelphia. And then obviously he stops in Tennessee, who also had good defense. I just think this coaching upgrade is probably going to be the most underrated of all the upgrades, I think.
Yeah. I think that sometimes it kind of gets, I don't know. It's one of those things where it just kind of gets lost in the sauce sometimes when you look at plays like that. Okay. I had a question. I forgot what it was. I will serve this up because there's a couple more topics I want us to get to as we're running out of time here. So I want to talk about this Warren Sharp thing that was on Twitter today that I wanted to kind of highlight it. And if you haven't seen it, I'm going to read a little bit of it just because I thought it was really interesting. It was a very interesting thing. So Warren Sharp sends this thing out. I end up seeing it, and I know Casey hasn't actually seen it, so he's learning about this with you guys. But I saw it at my lunch period. I ended up seeing it at lunch, and I was reading it. He says, it's not who you play. The NFL doesn't control that because they don't. They have the rules you're going to play on a rotational basis, but year to year, they're not making rules on who to play. It's always going to be the same. AFC North is now going to play the NFC East or whatever it might be. And those rules are in place, but it's when you play them, and the NFL there's the actual chart. Yeah. So I'll read it as we get to this chart, which shows it. The NFL has 100% control of when you play, who you play. They set the schedule. I found the 2023 schedule is less fair and equitable at a historical level. All right. So he says, let's look at schedule equity using a number of variables related to rest and prep. So that's the big thing here is teams playing other teams on different levels of rest. So net rest edge, more or less rest than opponent's days to prep for your game, short week road games off road, Sunday night football and Monday night football, and negated bye weeks. So those are the factors that go into this. In 2023, there will be 95 games played where a team has more rest than their opponent, most in history. As recently as the late 2000s, the NFL wouldn't schedule 30% of the games where one team had a rest advantage, but this year there's 35%. So they wouldn't even get the 30 and now they're up to 35. But even worse than that, it's the lack of balance. For example, in 2022, one team played 5 or more games with more rest than their opponent. This year, 5 teams play 5 or more games with more rest than their opponents. And I'm like reading this shit. I'm like, okay, this is insane. In addition to a massive increase to last year, look at this. Teams playing 5+ games with a rest edge, 1 last year, 5 this year. Teams playing 0 to 1 games with a rest edge, 1 last year, 5 this year. It's wild the level of haves and have-nots in this situation. This year is the most positive, the most total positive rest edge is 17 days. 17 days, there's a rest edge of 17 more rest days for a team than their opponent.
Which is held by the Jets.
Oh, there you go. Remember, you only get 1 bye week, so that's 7 days of extra rest, but this person has 17. So how do you get a total of 17 extra days of rest? 3 mini buys in 1 game with a 1-day edge. Unprecedented. And it goes on. It actually continues to go on. And you get to this chart, and you're looking at the Jets being at the very, very top. Cleveland is actually at a net rest age of +10. So Cleveland actually is benefiting from this for the most part. In the end, Cleveland will have 10+ days of extra rest on their opponents overall in the entire season when that's put together. And it's funny because the Browns are up there. But who's at the bottom? San Francisco has -20. Like, that's just, dude, like, that's not, you can't be
brutal.
Yeah, you can't be doing this shit. Like, this is just insane to me.
You know what? So I was reading this tweet, right? Because it's a huge thread, which is really good from Warren Sharp. It's definitely worth your time because he breaks it all down in such great detail like Jacob did.
He's at Sharp Football if you want to read it yourself. I
was expecting to get to this chart and just see Cleveland at the very bottom. I was honestly, I was, especially because, like with the way they're playing all 3 division opponents in the first 3 weeks, but anyway, I was pleasantly surprised. You're top 5. You're on top of your division in the net rest that you get, does that surprise you guys?
Anything that goes in the Browns' favor surprises the shit out of me. Like, I'm off to trust Warren here because I'm not going to pour through that information. But, it would have to be a +20 before I'll even consider it to be anywhere even, as much as we've been fucked over for years and years. You know what I mean? So, good. 10. I think that, so is this the NFL being worried about better television games? I wonder, because if they've held to this strict status where they wouldn't allow, this differential to happen, but all of a sudden the floodgates appear to be open, what changed?
Yeah.
Other than Aaron Rodgers going to New York, what changed? Where all of a sudden the Jets are the heavy favorite. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I heard a phrase, schedule czar. I had not heard that up until this year, that the NFL has a schedule czar, and he kind of puts the final stamp and says, all right, this is the schedule. You guys are good to go. What changed that made a discrepancy like this happen? Because 5 teams, you said, have a differential of what was the number?
They 5 teams will play 5 or more games where they have the rest advantage.
And who are those 5 teams?
I didn't.
I was just wondering how many of them are blue bloods. I mean, if you tell me the Steelers aren't on that list, I'll shit myself.
I don't see it. I don't see the actual list in here unless he provided it somewhere else. I just don't see it. I would. Wait, hold on. Oh no, never mind.
It might be in the article. I'm not positive because I read the tweet thread, but not the article. So I also am drawing a blank about which teams it is.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I can't find it.
Well, I'm with Nick. If you told me that ahead of time, hey, this is happening, I would assume that we were getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
But, cool, good. I'll take any advantage. When they were like, the Browns have the fifth easiest schedule or whatever it was. Until we're number one, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy enough. I'll tell you that.
It never is.
No, so like whatever is whatever. Every team's looking to improve. When they base that stuff, they base it off winning percentage from the season before. Every team made moves to get better, unless you're the Cardinals. So it all works out in the end. By halfway through the season, that'll all adjust, and your strength of schedule will be based on teams' winning percentages this year. So I'll take all the rest we can get, man. Amen. Let's figure out a way to get 2 or 3 more days.
So we have officially made the decision. We will be at the season opener this year. So we will be there with our friend Andy Manchin.
Shout out Dawg Jug.
Listen, the last time we did that, the last time we were with Andy Manchin in his seats against the Bears had one net passing yard. So we were there for that. So we're kind of hoping that our mojo it ignites the flames for Myles Garrett and Za'Darius Smith and those guys to do it again on September 10th. Yeah, it's September 10th, right? Is that the game?
That sounds right.
But so we're there. We have decided upon that we will be there at week 1. Guys, we're coming to the end of the show. So I'll start with you, Casey. Is there something that you'd like to talk about or say that we haven't gotten to yet?
I'll just say this. If you guys are at that game and you hold Joe Burrow to 1 net passing yard, I'm personally starting a GoFundMe to get you guys to every game.
I'm good with that. Nick, what do you got?
You know what? I hope we can replicate that. That was easily the best Browns game I've ever been to. So we're gonna run it back. But there's been a conversation on Twitter today about the Browns signing a former Buckeye running back, Zeke Elliott, and there's been a lot of opinions on this topic. And I think the show has a pretty strong opinion that maybe might not be popular, but what do you think?
Me?
Yeah.
One side note real quick. Larry says he'd like to see the betting correlation to that with sports betting being so much more legal in other places. That's actually a good point. I wonder if we can, if somebody would do that, because that may be why. Because I know Casey, that's what he's like, why? And it's like, well, that might be. So here's the thing, man, about Zeke. You're not like, you didn't cut Kareem Hunt. I know that because like his contract was up, so I'm not saying that. You did not get rid of a 27-year-old running back who through insiders say it was because you believed he had lost a step. You do not get rid of that to sign someone who is the same age. He's about to turn 28, who's actually, I think, lost more steps than Kareem Hunt. We already got a backup center. We don't need one. We don't need to bring him in there to be a player backup center. He has a 13% drop rate. Like, because like people are saying, well, he can pass protect. Like, okay, so if I'm looking for a pass and like maybe he can catch the ball. Okay, if I'm looking for a pass protector that can catch the ball, I'll get the guy that's better at both of those things, which is Kareem Hunt. But my point is, if this dude didn't freaking wear scarlet and gray, you wouldn't say this. And listen, like, dude, I was zeking it up when he was in Ohio State. Like, I was all about that. I talked to Randy Guernsey this morning, the editor over at Dog Pound Daily, man. I sent him a text and I was like, there's these rumors. Some random account was like, oh, the Browns and Chargers are the top 2 teams or whatever. And I was just like, who the hell? Like, nobody reputable has said that. And guess what? Have you noticed something? People, we got to get Zeke. We got to get Zeke in there to help Nick Chubb. Have you noticed that nobody's brought him in for fuck off anything?
Hard pass.
That's all I got on that.
Hard pass. I mean, sometimes you got to let glory go. You know what I mean? I get it. You got the scarlet and gray goggles on. He did what he did in 2015, but it's over, man. There's too much tread on those tires. If you take away carries for Nick Chubb to give to Zeke Elliott, I'm gonna lose my shit. That can't happen. That's not on the table. There is not a dimension that Andrew Berry's like, we got to figure out a way to get him on the team. That's it. He's the missing piece. Shit is not happening. Let it go. Let him go wherever he's going to go. And wherever he goes, God bless him. Wish him well. But I don't see him doing well. I don't see the fountain of youth reappearing. Ponce de Leon ain't knocking on that door. You know what I mean? Zeke Elliott, I'm sorry you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell up out of here.
Last year was the first year in Zeke Elliott's career that he averaged under 4 yards a carry. And compared to when he entered the league in 2016, he averaged 5.1 yards a carry, which is Nick Chubb territory. I mean, when Zeke Elliott was good, he was great. Yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. He was truly he got paid for a reason.
Yeah.
But we watched Tony Pollard outplay him in Dallas last year. I can't. Zeke Elliott to me offers too much of the same thing that like less good Nick Chubb. Basically what you're saying, Casey. And I just, that's not the type of back you need. You need somebody who's catching passes, because we've seen that the Browns aren't often using Nick Chubb in the pass game. In those third and longs, like they don't have Nick Chubb out there. And so if that's the way they're going to use him, you need a running back that's going to offer you more of that. And I hope that it's Jerome Ford, but I think I do think I brought this up to a friend today, and they were like, well, the Browns do need a third running back. Right. And so I can agree with that. I do think they need someone, but I don't think it's Zeke Elliott.
J.D. McKissick.
Ooh.
Times a million over Zeke Elliott. You know, it's not even close.
There's a bunch of them.
I'm just saying, like, I feel bad for him, but we've seen the tragic tale of Todd Gurley, you know, and this is just another installment in that long series. You get 300 carries too many times, man, it starts to go. And all it takes is a fraction of a second slower, and all of a sudden what you're doing is not working at running back. And I feel bad for that position in general, just because the shelf life is so short. You know, and like Nick said, when he was good, he was great. The Dallas Cowboys kept a injured running back over Zeke Elliott. That just happened. You know,
I forgot about that.
If that doesn't tell you anything, they kept Pollard. Pollard's coming off a major injury, so it tells me everything I need to know.
That's a good point.
I think that is the perfect bow.
That's
on a great Tuesday night.
If you haven't checked it out, Guardians are playing right now. It's 0-0. We do live in the guard life. The new episode just dropped today. We greatly appreciate everybody for coming today. Casey, tell them where they can find you.
You can find my writing at Dog Pound Daily.
Okay.
You can find me on Twitter at Casey_Kinnamon. And that is like cinnamon with a K, Nick. That's exactly how you spell it. So you can find me there, and anywhere else on Twitter, I'll be around.
I'm sorry, Casey. It was an honest mistake.
Hey,
if you think it's the first time it's happened to me, I mean, trust me, man. I've been called cinnamon a lot. I used to have a ready response when it would happen that I can't say on air here.
It's like those guys that are really tall that have business cards that are like, yes, I'm 6'8", like, you know, and they just like give it to you. Siaki Ika film room dropped on the channel last Wednesday, Cedric Tillman, or last Friday, Cedric Tillman before that. If you join the membership program here at the channel, $2.99 a month, you'll get or about 24-hour early access to those. DeJuan Jones film room will drop for members on Thursday night, Friday afternoon, late afternoon, evening. The DeJuan Jones film room will be up on the channel. Yeah.
This has been episode 105, 104.
We're probably off the next 2 weeks. Just so you know.
Yes, we'll keep you updated. But in the meantime, this has been episode 104 of the Barking Browns Show. I'm Nick. He's Jacob. Thanks to Casey. Go Browns.
Woo!